Hey, I'm Jessie.
Hi, I'm Ryan, and you're listening to Your Therapist Is Not Okay.
On this episode, we're going to be answering a listener question, which is I started therapy training, and do you have any tips on getting started at this stage? We're going to answer all your questions and also give some of our own, what we wish we had known before starting our therapy program.
This is a subject that we both have quite a bit to say about, we realized. As we've both trained a lot of students, we've been obviously in training ourselves and have reflected a lot on those experiences when we've been deciding how we want to give supervision, how we want to do trainings. Um, so let's dive in.
Yeah, first thing, way to go. If you're starting training, this is a really exciting time. It can be scary. One of the main questions that every single therapist or potential therapist has going in is, do I have what it takes? Am I going to be good enough?
Hmm.
Um, what if I fail at this? Those are all normal feelings at this stage. Really, whoever chose you for the program knows you got what it takes, and you got to lean into that at this stage. So we're proud of you, Ryan and I. And for anybody thinking about the field, that feels amazing. We need more people like you joining us.
Absolutely, yeah. Welcome to the field. Um, I think one thing that I always encourage new students to reflect on, your program may push you to reflect on it, or it may not. It really depends on the program quite a bit, and we'll talk more about different programs later. But we do really encourage students to think about their why. Why do you want to be a therapist? And when we ask that, we do not want you to stop at the quote nice answer. We want you to go deeper. This is something that comes up anytime we interview candidates for associate or student positions. And if someone kind of says, I want to help people, we're like, okay, that's nice. That's not why you want to be a therapist, though. There's always kind of a murkier reason. We talk about the shadow side when it comes with that. So there's some unmet needs or trauma history that we each have that kind of drives us to have that desire and sense of reward from being a helper, from helping other people get their needs met. And it's really important in our minds that we can each know that so that we know kind of what baggage we're bringing into the therapy room so we can be aware of it and not have it kind of take over and cause us to be less helpful to our clients or harm ourselves in that process.
We do almost always start our interviews by asking this question.
Mhm.
And the reason for our why is exactly what Ryan just said. And it's also for self-reflection. Ryan was saying a really important point about the shadow. The young shadow side is all the things that we want from any field we join, but therapy especially. Knowing some of the things that have motivated us might have come from our past. It might be about this was a role I always fit into. And this is how I was with my friends, potentially even one of my parents. And I got good at it because I had to. I think about that aspect of reading people. That's a skill that is a necessary skill when we're younger. If we've had a past that wasn't so nice, so to speak, to look to be safe, to look how to get love. And often, really good therapists have often come from pretty complicated pasts. We know darkness, we know how to help people because we've had to. And figuring that out is really awesome. There's a really cool paper. If you ever want us to send it, just send us an email. We will. It's from Hawkins and Shohei, and it's called "Why Do You Want to Be a Therapist?" And part of their main thing is it's probably not exactly what you think, and they dive into
Mhm.
the shadow and really let us see some of our own motivations of that can get into our way. And too many places don't actually ask this question and really go beyond wanting to help people. Ryan and I really don't think that anyone just wants to help people. There's 1,000 other reasons. And that self-awareness is what makes an excellent therapist, like way beyond being just a good enough therapist.
that kind of like seeking more depth that's also going to be helpful for you in your role as a therapist is something to apply to yourself in this. It's like, I want to help people. Okay, why do you want to help people? Sure, you want to help people. I want to help people too. But there's reasons driving that, like Jesse was saying. Um, and that really taps into the other aspect of that Jungian shadow side, the persona, which is the part that we do want people to see. We want people to think of us as being this. We want to think of ourselves as being this. And so that persona is often about like seeming put together, maybe seeming professional, seeming helpful. Those are those initial kind of answers that we're talking about. That tends to be persona, and we kind of got to crack through that to get to the shadow and to get deeper. It's something that Jesse and I do in our psychodynamic workshop with student therapists, experienced therapists. We really help people dig into their motivations and their persona and their shadow to kind of understand what's coming up for them in their client work so that they can use the transference, use the counter transference, and really understand the client and where the kind of dividing line between them and the client is as well.
Yeah, if you're interested in taking it, just let us know because we love to have more and more people join. Ryan and I have probably used this term more times than we can count on our podcast, but we love thinking about us as the therapy, us as the technique.
Hmm.
And so basically, what we're saying for the very first kind of point of advice to young therapists is who are you as a therapist? And how are you going to hone who you are to be able to meet somebody else? The next part that we kind of thought we would dive into is what to do now that you're in training. And really, the main thing is how do you get the most out of it? The real simple answer that can be a lot more complex than it seems is you'll get what you put into your training. You get what you give. And so that means entering it with a real level of vulnerability. Being able to start to ask that question of who am I in this space already starts that journey of vulnerability. But it's also thinking about what am I nervous about and how might I be masking that in order to look like I have everything put together.
Absolutely, yeah. And that vulnerability, that edge of your comfort zone is where the real learning is going to happen. So if you're struggling to get there, find ways to support yourself through it. I remember often thinking about this metaphor in my training that I felt like a piece of meat that was being punched. You know, Rocky Balboa when he goes into the meat freezer and he's
Yeah,
boxing with the meat. I felt
absolutely.
like that piece of meat. That it was just like I was already so vulnerable and exposed and just having all those soft points punched and hurt. And it was really difficult, but often with that feeling came kind of a sense of growth and learning that something like really profound was happening, and I was able to access so
Mm,
much more of myself because of it.
yeah.
And to this day, like when I kind of have that feeling is when I'm probably doing my best work.
Mm,
Um, and I will say that that takes a lot of time to be able to allow ourselves to engage with that and kind of drift into the depth to really take the time and care necessary to write not just an essay that will get a good grade, but an essay that is allowing us to grow and be vulnerable, things like that. So really what we're saying here is along with being vulnerable, make sure you make time and space as much as you practically can, which could be reducing or rearranging work where possible. If it's at all possible for you to not work, obviously there's a lot of socioeconomic pressures that, depending on who you are and
yeah.
where you're coming from that come with that. It's not possible for everyone. If it's possible for you, I would encourage you to do that so you can just really focus and have as much time as possible dedicated to processing what comes up for you, dedicating to being, collaborating with your supervisor and your peers when you're starting to see clients and learning about that.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. That aspect of who am I? What am I doing in this program? Not all programs will be asking you these questions. It's why Ryan and I often find that the workshop can be really cool for therapists, even those that have been in the field for a long time. A lot of programs will focus on interventions, treatment plans, and kind of progress with clients. But regardless of what program you're in, what modality you're studying, it's still you that's the therapist. And so it really is about you starting to do this work regardless of where you're at. The next thing I'm thinking about is how the program, again, kind of regardless of where you are, and maybe especially once you enter practicum and start seeing clients, is to notice what might be changing in you. Ryan, when you were talking about being that piece of meat, that aspect of like, wow, I'm feeling really pummeled right now. I'm doing a lot of introspective work, and that's change. So, what's happening in you? What's changing? And in that, what might you be needing? I'll give you an example that I was told in my program. I started to notice my relationships were changing. For me, a lot of my life kind of felt like I felt really close to people when they needed me. If I was
Mm,
the sounding board for friends, I kind of felt special and seen. Um, and my shadow was probably that if they need me, they won't leave me.
mm,
When I started this program and I started seeing more and more clients, I realized I no longer had the bandwidth to start doing that same role for friends. And I had to start kind of adjusting what I really wanted to be as a friend, that I maybe no longer needed to feel so special and the person that everyone came to with their problems, because I started to realize that was my shadow that was leaking in there. And it wasn't always healthy for me to be that person. And in fact, sometimes my friends wouldn't get it back. The very people that would lean on me were not always the people I was leaning on. And I started to realize that there was a real difference between what people were asking from me and my fear of what I was asking back in return. They can be
mm,
vulnerable with me, but I didn't always feel comfortable to do the exact same, which meant that my relationship started dramatically changing. And some people, really sadly, only wanted that role from me. And when I
mm.
started to say no, they pulled away.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very common when you train to be a therapist that you really start to notice all those relationship dynamics, whether they're with friends, family, partners, that this is feeling a little one-sided. Maybe in
Mhm.
general, maybe in a specific way, like Jesse was saying, that like I can be vulnerable. You can be vulnerable with me, but I can't be vulnerable with you. Noticing sometimes that you're doing the bulk of the emotional labor in a relationship, you're kind of doing the processing,
Yeah.
you're kind of feeling like you have to hold your tongue and be mindful of what you're doing, what you're asking for. And when you're so much more aware of it because you're talking about it with clients, because you're processing it in your courses, that you're really like, oh, this is not healthy for me. This
Yeah.
is often for me when I notice things like that, it's like, oh, this is bringing out like not the best part of me. This is bringing out like a frantic, self-sacrificing part of me. And I think one of the reasons that you notice that in training is because you were so in, like me, in that pummeled piece of meat moment that like I don't have any extra to
Yeah.
give. So I really notice when someone is wanting extra from me or when someone is not reciprocating my care. Because then I'm like, oh, this is another client, is sometimes what the feeling can come up with, even though that's not what we set out to have in friendships, obviously. That's where you kind of start to notice it when you've been training. You're like, oh,
I think that there's more new therapists than not that have been in that role with their friends and family and partners,
absolutely.
working for free. But it's also because we're so innately attuned to having to listen that it becomes a really good role fit within our relationships. And we become that person that's the go-to. The director of our program one time told us, and I thought he was so wrong at first, but he was actually completely correct. He says, expect your relationships to change. In fact, expect your social circle to get smaller, not because it's a bad thing, but because you start to weed out who's life-giving to you and who might be taking from you. And I don't think a lot of people talk about this in trainings, but there's a real need for us to kind of start examining our own life as soon as we start helping people examine theirs. And you do start to realize I might have had a role in this relationship that's no longer life-giving and completely can be draining for me.
Hmm. And I would encourage everyone to lean into that instead of trying to shove it down. Lean into it, figure out what's there, make big decisions that you may have to make. Um, and just thinking about it and bringing it up with someone doesn't mean things necessarily have to change. It may or may not. But I think there's a lot of being a therapist that's about having conversations that we're afraid to have
Yeah.
with ourselves, with our clients, encouraging our clients to do that.
Hmm.
Um, I think like, especially early in training and every day, I hear things come out of my mouth to my clients that I'm like, "Oh, what a novel idea, Ryan. If something's bothering you, maybe you should talk about
I
it."
was just thinking that. I was going to say the exact same point that when you start seeing more and more clients, you're going to realize that some of the things that you're saying, you're like, I also needed to hear that. Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Absolutely.
The next thing that I think is really important is to think about supervision.
Mhm.
You're going to have required supervision hours when you do training. Almost every single one of them would require it. If the program doesn't, that's a red flag. So make sure you look for supervision. And even when you are like finished your required hours, there are a lot of therapists, including myself, including Ryan, that will continue to see a supervisor because it's never not helpful to
Mhm.
have somebody else guiding you in your journey to make sure that you look for your own transference, countertransference in a therapy relationship, to think about how our personal lives may be impacting our work in some ways. That happens regardless of how long you've been in the field, and it can definitely be something cool to start with in the beginning of your training. So, really, we have some supervision do's and don'ts.
Mhm. Yes. So one thing I would suggest is that you really advocate for a good supervisor match. There may be systems set up at your school that don't allow a lot of freedom in that. I know at our school, a lot of people just got assigned a supervisor and didn't
Yep.
have any say in that. You may have that situation. You may also just kind of be told, like, here's a list of supervisors, find one and choose. So kind of shop around. Have those initial consults with people. Most therapists will offer a free initial consult so you can chat a little bit, get to know them, see if you feel comfortable with them, see if you feel safe to be vulnerable with them because you need to be vulnerable for supervision to work well.
Mhm.
And don't be shy to like bring things up with them and say like, actually, I'm kind of worried about this in our relationship, or I'm noticing that I'm afraid to bring these things up to you.
Mhm.
And either that will be a really great conversation, or you will find out you need to look for a different supervisor.
Yeah, this is a tricky one because, oh my goodness, I remember how much I had to like scrimp and save, take all my pennies I could. But if a supervisor's charging and you think that they're the ones to help you, they are going to be invaluable. So sometimes you may actually have to be finding a supervisor is not just free, but someone that might charge a little bit. That actually can be just fine. I know it's going
Mhm.
to feel like an expense right away, but this is the thing that's actually going to help you be the best therapist you can. Bringing in clients, like, and case conceptualizations,
Mhm.
thinking about what's happening in the room, having someone that can meet you right there that you're vulnerable with is essential. And what I would say when I, as a supervisor, is I actually am most impressed by my practicum students and anybody that sees me for supervision if they can be so honest.
Mhm.
Too many supervisees are trying to impress me. That's not what's impressive. What's impressive is you saying, I did something. I'm not proud of it. I'm a little nervous to share, but I'm doing it because this is the space to share. Oh, that's the stuff. That's the
Mhm.
stuff that makes good supervision for me. I don't need to hear you being perfect. I'm here to help you. And I'm here for us to work through those vulnerabilities. And so those are the things that are actually you're going to come away from that supervision feeling met if you found the right one, heard, and actually able to get better in your practice.
Yeah, but those good supervision sessions, they're not easy necessarily at all, but you might still feel a little bit lighter after them because you've kind of unburdened yourself from something that you felt like you had to keep as a secret. It's like because you made a mistake or because you didn't know what you're doing or because you had complicated feelings coming up. There's so many ways of thinking about therapy where people are kind of told it's bad if you have countertransference. It's bad if you have these complicated feelings up coming up, and the goal is to not have them. We could not disagree more with that.
Yeah.
Right? The goal is to process them, to be open to them, to allow them to keep coming. They will never stop coming. And
No,
if you just push them down, you're missing out on valuable information about your clients and yourself.
absolutely.
Just to touch on what Jesse said about the cost, I always like to remind people, like, think about how much you're paying for classes. The amount is probably ridiculous, and know that what you pay for your supervisors will be worth it because you get more out of supervision than you get out of classes.
Hmm.
So it is far more valuable to have a good supervisor than to take a class. Um, I think the next thing we want to talk about is about taking care of yourself when you're a pummeled piece of meat. Um, so start self-care routines before or as soon as you start your training. And you're going to want to do a lot more than you think you need to. This is not bare bones like, oh, I watched a TV show tonight. It needs
Hmm.
to be very intentional, and very significant self-care.
Absolutely. That's such a good point. In training, there's so much to do. You're going to be in classes, writing essays, probably having tests if you're doing a master's. You're going to be thinking about the CRPO requirements. If you're on Ontario or anywhere, will have certain licensing requirements. You're going to be seeing clients. You're going to be having supervision. There's 1,000 things that are about to line up, which is all part and parcel to being in a course. But if you decide that that Sunday night, instead of writing for 3 hours, you do the thing that feels life-giving for you, you'll have so much more energy come Monday to
Mm.
actually write something that's good and remind yourself that you being burnt out isn't going to help you on your course. You allowing yourself space and time is not only helping you in your training, but will carry through for the rest of your career. So start early. And this, as Ryan perfectly said, what is it for you? I like to use the word frivolous.
Mm.
What feels a little bit too much? Like, is it going to be having like a huge bubble bath with chocolate and a glass of wine or whatever? Like, what's going to give you the thing that you're like, this is so silly. I can't believe I'm like,
Mm.
spending 8 hours watching my favorite TV show on a Sunday in my pajamas. That's perfect. If it feels like you don't deserve it or it's too much, that's what we're looking for.
Mm.
And I know for myself, oh, I have a whole scene set up. I get a cup of tea, I get my candles lit. I have a candle that is the same scent as my incense, and I'll burn them at the same time.
Surround sound smell,
Surround
yeah.
sound smell, so it doesn't like compete with each other. And then I open up my Kindle and I am like nested for hours. The only
Mm.
thing I have to think about is whether or not I need another cup of tea or if I've drank so much tea I have to use the bathroom. For me, that's my frivolous self-care. It's setting
Mm.
the scene. I even have like these beautiful little lights I'll put on, mood lighting. I love it. For me, no sound, quiet, and I can immerse myself in a book. That is mine. So finding out what yours is really important. I used to think it was, oh, I should see a friend and go for coffee and do all these things. Oh my goodness. That's not what's going to give me life. It
Mm.
does, but what's going to give me that feeling of like I'm recharged? I know it's quiet.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the things that feel like decadent, life-giving, luxurious, that if you pause and think about it, you're like, you know what? I can actually make that happen. I can actually make that happen. It actually costs less than a lot of things that I would normally do on a weekend or something like that. I tend to encourage people too that there's that arm of self-care, the like what helps you feel recharged, what is like kind of treating yourself in a way. And then I also encourage people to think about what are the things that will help you meet your other needs. And this is where I said, like, make sure that you're eating in a way that makes you feel well and makes you feel recharged. And doing physical self-care, like making sure you do whatever physical activities feel good to you, help you feel good in your body. Some of it is almost really like parenting yourself, right? Making sure you have those needs met. So I really encourage folks to do that. Time alone, time with other people, find the balance that really feels good. I know when I'm busy with work, I have a different amount of social time that I'm really interested in. And
Yep.
sometimes it's about total time, and sometimes it's just about when it is too. Like if I've seen 4 or 5 clients, I'm not talking to anyone.
Yep.
Go away. And so being intentional about the quality of my social time, which I think connects with what our program director was saying about your social circle shrinking, is like it has to be good social interaction, not just kind of like small talk for it to feel generative for me.
Absolutely. And I think that kind of ties into our next piece of advice, which is specifically about your training. This is going to be very different from your undergrad in a lot of very important and kind of surprising ways.
Mhm.
Ryan was talking about being able to be vulnerable in the papers you're writing. There was something that on our program people said that a really good mark would be bleeding on the page. That is different from program to program. Obviously, Ryan and I are psychodynamic therapists. You could only imagine the kind of training we got, which was diving into all of the stuff that like our unconscious is doing. Yes, it was difficult. And I would not do it differently, even
Yeah,
though I would probably, even when I was in it, I still thought I was going to do it, even though it was hard.
yeah.
But there's something about this level of self-awareness that will make you really succeed. Almost in any program. What your professors are going to be looking for is how you're looking at the relationship, what you're looking at for change, and how you're conceptualizing it, which means kind of starting to see both the positives, the things that you want to work on, what might be coming up for you, what you actually think might be coming up for the client. That's very different than just regurgitating facts on a page, which is what a lot of our psychology programs were in undergrad,
Mm.
of like, what did I retain? This is now taking theory and applying it in a real-time setting of like what's happening. And most programs that I know of really value that level of self-exploration and being able to start to think, what do I need here? Or what's this paper asking for me? And how do I start to really conceptualize this in a way that uses theory in real time?
And I guess that kind of leads very nicely into our suggestion that you be very selective with the school that you go to. If you haven't started yet, and if you're looking around at schools to apply to, be very selective. If you're in a program and it's not feeling right and you have the opportunity to transfer, it's probably going to be worth it. I would say that you're not looking for school rankings, right? You're not looking for just the top 5 schools in psychology, right? What you're really looking for is the quality of the program in terms of how they prepare you and support you through your practicum, what practical and theoretical trainings are in place. You want to look at what modalities the school teaches and make sure that they're modalities that resonate with you and that you feel like I want to learn about more about that and that's the way I want to practice.
Mhm.
There's a lot of different modalities. As we've owned many times, we have a strong bias when it comes to modalities. We love psychodynamic, we love person-centered.
Yeah.
These are the things we're really trained in. Other modalities have interested us many times, and we have learned a lot about them and gained things from them, but we always come back to that core of psychodynamic. And so it's been really meaningful to both of us to have had that training in that modality as a strong foundation.
Here's a good kind of way of thinking about this. Why did Ryan and I really like psychodynamic? Is probably something I would be thinking about.
Hmm.
For us, our why was psychodynamic isn't really a modality that teaches you what you're doing in session with a client. If you saw a video of me with a client, it might look really person-centered. There's probably some elements of homework, which could feel like CBT. I might be looking into inner child work. We might be re-narrating a past experience. So it's really psychodynamic isn't necessarily about a how-to book. There are a lot of techniques that are in psychodynamics, but it's really about how we are conceptualizing, how we're looking at themes and interconnections, and walking a client not farther away or like breadth, but it's really about depth.
Mhm.
Thinking about what their body language is doing. What word do they keep repeating? Why did this impact them? And that why of impact is something that really grabbed us towards psychodynamic.
Mhm.
And where am I in this relationship? I think too many modalities forget about the therapist in the client therapist relationship. Almost anyone that applies to centered self kind of says the therapist client relationship is like a journey together of mutual trust in the alliance. Yeah, that's great language. What does that mean? For us, we wanted to look into that really deeply, and psychodynamic for us does that. If you really like solution focused, absolutely. North America, especially, is really big on cognitive behavioral therapies and things that can be almost pretty systematic. If that really suits for your soul, first of all, ask yourself why, and then choose a program that'll do it. If you like internal family systems, thinking about your own journey within your family or how to walk someone through it, for sure. And there's a lot of programs that will do that, even combined with psychodynamics. If
Mhm.
you're somebody that wants to look in more humanist realms, that's where person centered comes in. So there's kind of a really good quiz that you can ask yourself of looking at the modalities and thinking about yourself sitting in a chair in front of a client. And that's kind of how you're going to choose your program.
Mm.
I was told really early on in my career, before I went into my graduate school, that the money is going to be in CBT. And there's if being a psychologist is the best way, this is where it's going to be. And I remember thinking, I'd rather be poor. I was like, I'd rather choose something that actually really grabs my heart than just something that everyone else is doing. And it served me so well.
Mhm. And it's, I think, more the mindset that some folks go into those modalities with that, allows them to quote, make more money. You don't get paid more by insurers or by clients because of your modality per se, right? The reimbursement rate is the same. It's the fee that you set, right? And it's about competing with the market or whatever and finding something that's accessible to the clientele that you want to reach and sustainable for your practice. So the money will come. It will be hard at times. Starting out a new private practice is difficult. So be really mindful about that and be really mindful when you're looking at practicum sites or future jobs about what they're asking from you. How many clients are they expecting you to see? Can you sustain that? What are the supports? Are they adequate for you? Um, there are quite a few schools that don't have a specific modality. They'll kind of teach you a little bit about each one, and then you could choose kind of optional programs from a list or optional classes from a list to learn more about a modality. So I would encourage you when you're in that overview course and they're like, here's all the different types of therapy, when one speaks to you, take more classes on it. Even reach out and find kind of continuing education classes, maybe outside of the school, that would help you learn more about that, especially for a modality that might not be really offered very much at your school. I would really encourage you to do that.
Yeah, a lot of our practicum students choose us specifically because we focus on like between the client and therapist, we do psychodynamic, and also that they know that the training they're going to get will allow them to learn more about this modality.
Hmm.
So yeah, absolutely. The one thing that no one's going to want to do, I hated it. I don't know, did you hate it? Is the videos we have to do with clients.
I did not love it, but I learned a lot from it, is what I would say.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is so embarrassing to have to watch yourself on video. And even to this day, I hate doing it because I always feel like all the weird things that I would do if I was off camera, I don't do when like I'm on camera. And I try to tell myself
Mm.
like, Jess, you already are established. I can't do it. But I'll tell you this as a supervisor, I love watching them. There's something about a practicum student or a supervisee telling me about a client, and it's so amazing when I actually get to see it in action. And so these videos are awesome. And you'll notice a real change in yourself from the first video you do with a client, let's say to the last video you do. You'll notice yourself change. And watching those, you can also see what your face does. It is not uncommon for our face to do things that we have no idea it's doing. A judgment comes over your face. I recently
Mm.
caught a practice. I'm like, what was going on for you when that client said that? Um, and it's just a great information about how you show up.
Absolutely. Yeah. Really fundamental learning, and you can notice ticks in your speaking or your moving that are helpful or unhelpful, or just there are things for you to be aware of. I know there was a time early in my training when I thought I had a poker face, and I do not. And that
Yeah.
came from not a video, but group work with my peers, where I was like, yeah, well, I don't say anything in that group because I'm really annoyed by all these people. And they were like, yeah, we know. Your eyebrows tell a thorough story. And I was like, oh, all right, might as well get out with it then.
I like that.
Yeah. Um, Another thing that we talked about when we were thinking about, programs and school is just grades, and how
Mm,
much they do and don't matter. Obviously, grades matter for making sure you pass your course or whatever, but in terms of being a therapist, getting jobs, starting a practice, no one cares about your grades. No one wants to see your GPA
mm.
when they're choosing you as a therapist. No one, in a job that you're applying for, it's going to be very rare for someone to ask for your GPA. They're looking for your skills. They're looking for your self-awareness. So kind of keep that in perspective when you're considering what matters most about what you're giving and getting from your education.
Oh, that I wish I had heard that when I was going in. I cared so much. And I worked so hard to make sure that I got like the highest level grade. Um, and to be fair, once I kind of let that go, I think it was after my master's doing my doctorate, I started to just have fun with the essays I was writing.
Hmm.
And I noticed the grades I was getting were actually way better because I stopped trying to be so safe and playing by the rules. And I just started to conceptualize and play with imagery with it. It was really interesting to see how me feeling more free in my practice and myself actually did reflect on paper. But yeah, there's not a single person that has been like, and what was your grade point average when you left the university? Single question, never asked.
Mm-mm.
So allow yourself if you needed time off for a little bit to breathe, that's okay. Taking time for yourself again, as we said before, is really important.
Absolutely. And as you were saying that, Jesse, I was thinking about like, oh, there's also going to be some persona stuff to kind of process there. Like, why is that such an important thing for yourself to know or for other people to know? Maybe just for your instructor to know that like you were one of the top students or you got a great grade. Think
Hmm.
about that and what it says about us. Yeah. The last kind of area that we want to talk about is one that varies from different programs, different countries that have various expectations about therapy, but it's really about keeping client care center and in the focus of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think one place that this comes up big for Jesse and I is the number of clients that we see.
Mm.
Doing the kind of in-depth work, especially with a relational perspective, with a psychodynamic perspective, takes a lot of energy, takes vulnerability from us as well as from our clients. Um, so we can't really healthfully see, you know, 8 clients a day. That's not really a thing. We need to see many fewer than that. You'll figure out through practice what's like a good number for you, but less is enough. 4 or 5 is really a lot for most therapists.
When we were doing our training in the UK,
Mm.
if you saw four clients, you were golden. If you saw five, they're like, oh, that's a busy day. And if you saw more than five, six or seven, they'd be like, well, how are the clients? Were you able to provide the same level of care to the first client than you were to the last? I didn't think that that wasn't anything other than the norm. When I moved to Toronto and I saw the hustle culture that Toronto's under, there's almost a point of pride of burnout, I find. And I think it can happen in major cities or different, like, kind of like city cultures. Um, that's the big question. What kind of energy do I have at the end?
Hmm.
You want to be able to have energy at the end of your day, just like you would with any career. And for me, I think I need my clients to have the same level every single time they see me. And that means that you really can't phone in this job. This
Mm-mm.
isn't going to be one of those desk jobs where you had a crazy late night and you're coming in a bit hungover and you're phoning it in. You don't have that job now. You chose this career. So, what do you need to do for yourself and for your clients? And sometimes that's seeing less, as Ryan said. Sometimes it's taking care of yourself the night before or the day before you see clients if you're working in the evening and thinking about how am I going to end today? How am I going to show up? Especially because most of us have something to do after work. How am I going to do that?
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, it's really important to keep that in focus. And I noticed this also come up in a lot of agencies where everyone's kind of burned out. Being burned out becomes the norm because, as Jesse was saying, like that almost badge of pride of like, oh yeah, I'm super burned out too. I saw 9 clients today, and it's like, oh, okay, you're not winning anything. You're not winning anything. I think there's something in there that sometimes people mean that means that they deserve the exhaustion that they're feeling or the intensity that they're feeling. If you feel intensity, you feel intensity. You don't have to earn it. You can
Yeah.
feel very drained and very vulnerable and like a pummeled piece of meat from seeing one client.
Oh, yeah.
And you can also feel that from seeing 8. You could also completely disengage when you're seeing 8 clients and feel almost nothing. And that's not going to be helpful for you or the clients ultimately.
I was thinking that. I was thinking about who suffers in that.
Hmm.
And it's really both. Both of you suffer. And this is going to come up when you're getting nervous. One thing that I want to let you know, especially if you're brand new and you're thinking about your numbers, in your program, you're going to have a specific amount of client hours you'll need to probably see to graduate.
Hmm.
There can be a weird amount of competition between you and your peers to get to that number fast and first. Stop it. I promise you this. You will make your hours. And if you don't by their deadline, it will only be a little bit of time until you do. And the more you worry about it, the more that desperation will come into every session you bring in with a client, every consult you have. We can feel that desperation.
Hmm.
And clients want somebody who they know feels confident and wants to be there and wants to hold them.
Hmm.
And they're not a number. They're not a checklist on you making the grade or getting graduated at a certain time. If it takes you a little bit longer, you have the rest of your career. It all counts towards your hours after this. And you being more relaxed, you'll have a better time. And so will your clients. And oddly enough, ironically enough, you'll probably have better retention if you're not so scared about making sure you meet the quota.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really glad you said that. That's super important. Yeah, I remember a lot of peers feeling very stressed about that. It was never been the thing that stressed me out. I have plenty of things that do stress me out, but that was never a thing for me, at least between my peers and me. I'm not a competitive person. Um, with student therapists often talk about experiencing imposter syndrome. So do very experienced therapists. So keep that in mind. And so some of that can kind of come with that anxiety of seeing enough clients, of being a good therapist, of not having an idea what you're doing. Um, I just want to tell any student therapist, especially if you're just starting out with clients, to know that you're a good therapist. Being a student doesn't mean that you are less good at being a therapist in my mind at all. And anytime I've been in a training role, I've encouraged and reminded the students that I actually think that they're often some of the best therapists because they have a lot more time and support per client. If you have a good supportive program and a good supportive placement site, then per each client, you're going to have a lot of time to process, to think about it. You're going to be writing about them in your essays anonymously. You're going to be processing them with your individual supervisor. You're probably going to have a supervision group as well. You're going to have courses where you bring case conceptualizations. So actually, each client gets so much more time, care, attention, and professional input from people than when you're experienced and maybe in a private practice and you're the only one thinking about that case for a much smaller period of time. So student therapists, you are excellent.
Ooh, that's kind of our last point. So I just want to piggyback on it
Mm,
with some advice that I actually really needed um, and held on to, and I still hold on to. A really wise person told me when I was starting, you're going to hear a lot of theory. You're probably going to see a lot of people doing therapy very differently than you might do it. And you're probably going to feel like that's what you should be doing. And you should be practicing this way. There's going to be a lot of shoulds that come up. But you went into this already a therapist at heart. The
mm,
very things that make you excellent were before you started the program. The program's going to be a bunch of tools it gives you, but it's not going to be you. Finding out who you are is amazing. And I've held on to that because I did feel that way of I need to be so professional, or oh, this person really is stoic and still. I need to be just like this person in order to
mm,
be a good therapist. I kept having this Rolodex, this kind of like list of all the things that I needed to work on. And then that advice came back up, and I was like, I'm already doing it.
mm.
Who am I? And it could be different than what you're seeing. And that's actually exactly the kind of learning that you need. So hopefully that advice that really helped me can actually stay with you too. There's a reason people probably were coming to you for help. And there's going to be a reason why your clients stay. And
Mhm.
the tools you learn are simply that, just tools.
I think it's a really good, perspective to go into school with that like you already have those great skills. Bring them with you. Don't lose them just because you're learning more stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We hope this helped. If you have specific questions, let us know. We love listener questions. It helps us because we know this is what you want to hear, but it also gives us a good launching board to kind of think about these things that we haven't thought about for a while. So hopefully this was helpful to you.
Yeah, always love to hear your questions. Thank you for listening today.
Take care. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, check out our others and stay tuned for even more episodes coming up.
Follow us and leave a review on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please tell your friends.
You can also follow us on Instagram too at Your Therapist Is Not Okay. Also, if you have any questions that you want us to answer, send us a DM there. We would love to answer your questions. And a lot of our topics come from listeners just like you.